Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. This one is a travel edition because my guest is currently on the road, promoting comics and sharing ideas and doing all the things, and it sounds like doing some amazing steps in terms of creating. Glad on this episode to be having a second conversation with Timothy Fling. Timothy, thank you for joining.
Jason, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I really enjoyed our interview we did last time.
Same, absolutely. Now, my first question may tip you off to maybe even a recent collaboration that's in progress, and that is so what's new in your creating? I know you have Water War 2288, but
Right.
anything else new that you'd like to
Yeah,
mention?
well, I'm just finishing the fulfillment for that campaign, and I have been working in secret with a concert promoter here in Sarasota, Florida, and we are making a photo documentary about the Sarasota rock festivals. It's been going on for 20 years, and it's going to have some cool backstage photos. There's going to be interviews with these legendary guitar players, and in short, I will be the editor and the Kickstarter maker for this project.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that new and very recent endeavor. And I know that, as I mentioned, Water War 2288 is also currently being fulfilled. Anything that you'd like to mention about that as sort of a glimpse for listeners out there that might be uninitiated?
Yeah, we've had this is our first time where we have organized all the stories together into one collected volume. And it's been very popular because, first of all, I want to say I love comics. I buy floppies. I love to buy single issues. But as many people are aware in the market, the trend is toward collected editions and a full collected volume. So that was our first one for the Water Wars series, and it was our best campaign. And I just got the books ably printed by the folks over there at Comics Wellspring, and they look amazing. It has the chrome logo, it's on the high glossy paper, the colors are bright and vibrant. We're very satisfied with the way this product came out.
Awesome. Well, always glad to share about your work, always glad to share about the work in progress, and curious about, I know that you work on the editing side, the creating side as well. So curious about the editorial process and vision that you'd like to share with people.
Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a couple of different things I do. I do a little bit of editing work for some comic clients, and that tends to be things along the lines of script review, layout review. I do some character analysis and some lettering recommendations. And in this case, the current book is what you and I would call sort of like a coffee table photo documentary. So in this case, we are gathering stories from the various people and employees of various concerts across the area here. And there are things like, police officers that were involved in incidents. There was things like one guy met his wife at the concert. I guess you could say there's slices of life about the concert, including it's not just the stories about the artists that played at the concerts. It's got a lot of uh, slice of life type things of the concert goers and the employees. There's some stuff with the roadies. There's some stuff with the tour poster designers. So if somebody is interested in concerts or guitars, this is a perfect project for them to follow.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, you mentioned working with biographical comics and science fiction. I know that you are creating a range and involved in supporting a range of creators. So curious about the kinds of stories that, sorry, let me try that again. Curious about the kinds of stories that inspire you the most to create and what inspires you to showcase creators.
The answers are going to be a little bit different because I've always been a little bit off the beaten path as far as the kind of stories that I like. And I have always leaned toward science fiction. But as most of the people who have been following me know, the stories are what you and I might call emotional short stories. And they're sort of along the lines of like a Ray Bradbury story or an Isaac Asimov story, where that there's more emotional components than technical components. You know what I mean? They tend to have what I call sad and beautiful endings. That's what we shoot for. The kind of stories that inspire me on the editing side, I like to be affiliated with new creators who are kind of finding their way, and to be able to help them with their creation has really been a great honor for me, and I'm so thrilled to have such great clients, and it's been a very rewarding experience.
Cool, cool, very cool. Well, anything else that you'd like to mention before we talk about the places where people can go, the places they can find work, any conventions or upcoming events that you'd like to mention?
I do have a couple. My next one coming up is going to be June 15th. That's the Stellar Con in York, Pennsylvania. I'll be there with my pals Jason So and David Daub in the Creators Row. And I will be releasing to the public for the first time. This will be this collected edition we've been talking about. That's called Water Wars 2288, the Ultimate Edition. And I will have a graphic to share with you so the folks can see it at home.
Yes, absolutely. We were going to plan a video stream, but the travel video seems to be a little
Yeah,
bit unavailable.
it could be my Wi-Fi in the hotel room.
No, no worries at all. We can do a video version that shows off some of the work that you're talking
Oh,
about.
great. Yeah, that sounds terrific.
Yeah, yeah. So if I'm a listener out there and I want to follow up, get involved, see some of the work, and purchase it, where might I go to do that?
Well, the best place in my case, most people know I'm a Kickstarter guy, so I've almost always got something going there. But I have my website, which is earthdogstudios.com. And I'm doing some pretty regular podcasting myself these days. That's the Creative Cranium. That's on Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're just getting ready to do our 70th episode this Friday
Nice.
night. Yeah, it's pretty
Congrats,
amazing, right?
congrats.
Thank you, buddy.
Mhm.
Thank you. You got a good show there that you're doing yourself. And I admire when people take the time to make some solid questions, you know?
Well, thank you, thank you. I hope the questions are indeed solid. I was thinking we talked, and I want to make sure that we cover some ground that maybe we didn't the first time. Anything that we haven't sort of unearthed that you'd like to mention and bring up before we close
Well,
out?
I would say this that this is something I've been telling other creators lately. And when you're given a chance to collaborate on a project with another creator, if you get along good with that person, I suggest taking the gig, even if it doesn't necessarily pay very well. I know we always say pay the writer. But what I've found is the first couple of things that I had done in the effort to try and be helpful has led now to paying gigs for me. And I'm still amazed that I've got a situation where people are buying plane tickets for me. So I can't
Uh,
even wrap my head around it. And then the next week, I'm going to be writing about rock concerts, right? So if you would have said even 6 months ago this would happen, I wouldn't have believed you. But then again, here we are. So my recommendation is jump in the water with other creators and try and help them make things. And you might be surprised where that road may lead.
One never knows where the road goes, and certainly glad to have you back to talk about this new project as it comes to be. I'm also a person who appreciates science fiction storytelling a great deal, and Water Wars looks really, really nice. And
Well, thanks. Well, thanks. Hey, do you have a favorite science fiction story or author?
oh goodness, I gotta go with. Been listening to a lot of Cordwainer Smith lately.
Oh, wow. Sure. All right.
Yeah, Howard Chaykin recommended Smith when I talked with him, but a classic go-to for me is Ray Bradbury.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I love
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury. He's a good example of the type of science fiction writer that has emotional components in his story. Like even
Hmm.
if you
Hmm.
talk about first I'll use I, Robot as the example. And of course I'm
Mm.
not talking about the Will Smith movie, which is a great movie, but it had almost nothing to do with the book.
Right,
But
right.
remember the book was the first short story was almost sort of like a heartwarming story about a family that couldn't bear to give up their robot. Remember that?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
actually they were going to get rid of the robot, and then I guess it saved the young girl's life or something like that, and then they had to decide to keep the robot. And
Yeah.
all the stories have that kind of flavor. I've often thought that one of the strengths of Ray Bradbury is he's able to place very real world situations into futuristic scenarios.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And the poetic style, which I think visuals have a certain poetry to them too.
Mhm.
But I love the poetic style. Any particular authors on your end that inspire you and get you
My,
digging and
my
creating?
my inspirational authors, I mentioned the science fiction ones, but I'm a huge J.R.R. Tolkien fan,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I'm a huge Raymond Carver fan, who is a short
Hmm.
story writer. A lot of people aren't too familiar with him, but he's possibly the greatest American short story writer. People always are surprised when I say this because, of course, that puts him ahead of Ernest Hemingway, but I would put Carver ahead of Hemingway.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I can
You a
in
Carver fan?
terms of I am. And in
Oh,
terms
nice.
of enjoying the story and enjoying what it offers, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Hemingway's
I,
one of those readers I read, or one of those writers I read, and I think this is interesting. This is lovely descriptions and sometimes not lovely descriptions, but a really good yarn.
well,
Carver's
and
really
he's a
strong for
great
that.
minimalist, right? We talk about this a lot in writing. Hemingway's the kind of guy who, in his writing, he doesn't say, what's an example here? Like instead of saying the woman was pregnant, he will say the man handed out cigars, if you follow.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's, the reader has to try and infer a lot of information from the sort of sparse storytelling that he employs there. But in the case of Carver, you have the same thing, but I feel the characters are much richer and his characters always have serious problems. And you
Yeah.
have to sort of sift through their awkward dialogue to figure out what's really bothering them. And there has a kind of a real world urgency that I really like.
Yeah, I think it was Cathedral that
Oh,
was
one of
in
my
my
favorites.
English teacher's classroom when I was in high school. So got introduced to Carver not through like someone saying, "Hey, you should read this," but I just remember looking over and seeing that on her shelf and thinking, "I should probably check that out,"
Yeah,
right?
that's one of my favorite stories. That's where the girls teaching the blind man what a cathedral is by drawing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Ties in really well with comics in that way.
Yeah, yeah, great pick, Jason.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. I'm not going to lie, that was a little happenstance that it happened to be comics related in that way, but a nice connection.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Nevertheless,
Of course,
nevertheless.
my first love is comics, and the writers and comics that I love is a pretty easy list. I love Alan Moore, I love
Mm-hmm.
Neil Gaiman, I love Grant Morrison, and those are probably the closest three that are an example to me.
Yeah. Well, in each one of those, we're talking about science fiction stories and
Pretty
fantasy
much,
and things
yeah,
like
and a
that.
little bit of
Uh,
horror, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Each one of those really weaves that in, which I feel like horror gets into science fiction and fantasy very easily. It kind of steps in. I've been listening to some stories from Skeleton Crew, and some other
Oh,
Stephen
nice.
King stories, and it's kind of interesting how quickly those step into science fiction spaces when they need to.
Yeah, you got a point. Yeah, there's a couple of them in Skeleton Crew too, right?
Yeah, yeah. The Jaunt, I think, is the one that I was listening to
Yeah, and
just
there's
not
the
too
one
long
about
ago.
is that one the one with Mrs. Todd's shortcut in it?
That might be. We'll have to check on that. I will get the team of researchers that I have over here
The
to check on that.
Words and
Uh,
Pictures research team.
that's right. That's right. We'll get on that. Meaning me and my Google machine is what that means.
Right, right. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Uh, well, always glad to talk comics and stories and all things. I'm hoping you have safe travels as
Thank
you're
you.
going out and about and sharing the love of comics and storytelling.
Wonderful. I appreciate the support, Jason, and I really dig what you're doing over there. Hey, one of the times I got to get you to come over on our podcast.
I was gonna say I would love to do that. I would
I
love
tell
to
you
do
what, when
that.
we get when I get back to my calendar, which unfortunately I'm in the hotel room, but when I get back, we'll set that up.
That would be wonderful. I'm always up for a conversation, and I'm also delighted to report to you that so long as Wikipedia is not lying to me, Mrs. Todd's Shortcut is indeed the
Yeah,
fifth story in the
yeah.
collection Skeleton Crew.
That's a
So
great
there it
book. I love
is.
that one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I will let you go on that note. I don't want to keep you, but glad to connect a second time here. And it sounds like we have a third conversation happening
Yeah,
in your podcast space as well.
I'd love to. Let's make it.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Timothy.
All right. Thanks, Jason.